Welcome to In Brief series and Elizabeth I. First we ask, what kind of foreign policy did Elizabeth follow? Elizabeth made peace as soon as possible and tried to stay out of expensive wars. She even attempted to maintain peaceful relations with Spain, although she drew the line at marrying Philip, as he proposed. The second question one asks, what kind of internal policy did she follow? Throughout her reign, Elizabeth had balanced at court and in council the various political factions, but her final years saw increasingly bitter conflicts between the Cecils, William and his son Robert, and Robert Devereux, the second Earl of Essex. Essex was appointed Lord Lieutenant of Ireland in 1599 and placed in charge of a large English army to suppress Irish rebels. Instead, Essex signed an unauthorized truce with the Earl of Tyrone, the Corydus rebel. Elizabeth deprived Essex of his titles and ordered his arrest. He responded by attempting a coup against Elizabeth in January 1601. What was her religious policy? Elizabeth adopted a moderate religious policy. The Acts of Supremacy and Infirmity, 1559, the Prayer Book of 1559, and the 39 Articles, 1563, were all Protestant in doctrine, but preserved many traditionally Catholic ceremonies. Moreover, Elizabeth didn't persecute Catholics. The penalties for resistance were mild and often not enforced. Pope Pius V heard of the revolt and, having despaired of Elizabeth restoring Catholicism, decided to help the rebels by deposing Elizabeth. In fact, the bull of deposition, regnans in Exodus, did not arrive until after the revolt's suppression and served only to anger Elizabeth and increase her distrust of Catholics. The view that all Roman Catholics were potential traitors led to a series of measures against them from 1570 onwards. Roman Catholics, judges, and justices of the peace were excluded from power, and it became increasingly dangerous to shelter priests. The Presbyterian movement. Anti Catholic feeling contributed to the growth of radical Puritanism. Many Protestants objected to the traditional ceremonies retained in the Church of England's worship. When Elizabeth and her bishops insisted that these rituals be observed, some Puritans took their opposition further and adopted Presbyterian views. Led by Thomas Cartwright, these Presbyterians wanted the church to be run by synods of clergy and elected laymen, as in Geneva and Scotland. Presbyterianism posed a series of serious threats to Elizabeth's control of the church. Before 1588, it was necessary to maintain Protestant unity in the face of the Catholic menace. But when this threat diminished, Elizabeth was able to turn against the seditious elements within the English church. Archbishop John Whitegift, 1530 to 1603, and Richard Bancroft, Bishop of London, 1544 to 1610, launched a propaganda campaign against the Presbyterians. Key Puritan leaders such as Thomas Cartwright, Nicholas Udall, and John Penry were silenced and imprisoned. By the 1590s, the Presbyterian movement was in complete disarray. Mary, Queen of Scots. Mary claimed the English crown. To strengthen her claim in 1565, Mary married Henry Stuart, Lord Darnley. Darnley was an alcoholic, capricious playboy, but he was the son of Margaret Douglas and therefore the grandson of Henry V's eldest daughter, Margaret Tudor. In 1567, Darnley himself was murdered, possibly with Mary's approval, and Mary then married the adventurer James Hepburn, Earl of Bothwell, who had probably organized Darnley's homicide. The outraged Scotch nobility rose again, defeated Mary and Bothwell in battle, and forced her to abdicate in favor of her infant son, James VI. Mary fled to England 1568, where she became the focus of English Catholic plots to depose Elizabeth. In 1569, the Earls of Westmoreland and Northumberland led the revolt of the Northern Earls, aimed at restoring Catholicism and placing Mary on the throne in place of Elizabeth. The rebellion was soon defeated from the moment of her arrival in England. Mary, Queen of Scots, schemed not only for her restoration to the throne of Scotland, but to seize the English crown. In 1586, Sir Francis Walsingham finally obtained compelling evidence that Mary had encouraged the assassination of Elizabeth, and Elizabeth reluctantly agreed to Mary's execution.